Bonjour à tous, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to the No-Till Market Garden podcast, episode 22, I think. Anyway, on the podcast today, we have the market gardener himself, Monsieur Jean-Martin Fortier, also known as JM, to talk about no-till and living soils. Some trials he's doing with deep mulch. We talk about the hedgerows at Ferme de Quatre, Temps, which is also just FQT farm for short. And we talk about setting up an efficient wash pack station because they need one there. It was a great conversation and I am excited to share it, but I could not share it without you. Please consider signing up to be a patron at patreon.com/farmerjesse. You can also Venmo us a donation at No-Till Growers. We are doing regular giveaways to donors. This month, I'm giving away 4 copies of Michael Foley's Farming for the Long Haul, which is just a must-read. It's just so good. We need to get that Patreon page up to $1,000 a month to afford a second season of this podcast. Nothing complicated about that number. Totally transparent. It is essentially just enough money to cover the running costs and affords me to pay a couple people to help me do the show, as well as a small salary for myself so I can justify taking the time away from my farm. If you like the show, if it brings you value, consider kicking in a couple bucks a month. That keeps it going and growing. We appreciate it. Also, we couldn't do this show without our amazing sponsors like Banner Greenhouses. Banner is a family-owned certified organic flower and vegetable plant producer. This second-generation farm has been producing plant starts since 1991, and they are extremely good at it. In fact, this is a sponsor that my partner in no-tillgrowers.com, Jackson, and I specifically sought out because of how much we love their product and know you will too. I have some Banner transplants in my garden as I speak. Their greenhouses and outdoor growing area cover 18 acres and enable them to provide optimum growing conditions for each cultivar. Get CCOF certified organic vegetable and flower transplants delivered straight to your farm. It's as simple as creating an account, choosing a crop and a desired plug size, then designating what week you want them to arrive. Whether you want to simplify your transplant production or don't yet have a prop house, get a better start with Banner Greenhouses. Ok, d'accord, mesdames et messieurs, je vous présente Monsieur Jean-Martin Fortier. Okay, we don't actually speak any French in this episode, so don't worry. Y'all, James Fortier. J.M. Fortier, welcome to the podcast.
Jesse, it's a pleasure to be with you. I'm a big fan of your work. You know that.
And likewise, feelings mutual. A lot of listeners are going to be familiar with that work that you do, but I'd like if you could catch us up a little bit on what you've got going on at Ferme de Quatre Temps. I mean, just kind of some general stuff. How much land is in production now and those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's going to be 5 years now already.
Wow.
I've been working on another farm where it's a farm that was created in 2014, and the goal behind that 15, so 4 years. And the goal behind that farm was to create a space in Quebec where a lot of the regenerative agriculture principles could be applied and put in action using permaculture design. We built a farm that has cows, that has hogs, that has chickens, and that has a big market garden. And that's the space where I can teach a lot of people now, more people, how to run, small 2-acre farms to be profitable, and where I can trial a lot of tools and just do a lot of stuff. So that farm is called La Ferme de Quatre. We call it FQT, easier, FQT farm. And it's 10 acres of vegetables. And it's just an amazing space. Highly productive. This year we ended up our 3rd season in production, and we sold for $650,000 of vegetables. And we have no tractor. We use all the hand tools that I talked about in the Market Gardner, and new ones that are really cool. Same principles, but we pushed a lot of things like crop planning 2.0, really, and washing station designs, really pushing that. And yeah, it's just been really, really cool. A lot of work, I have to say, but really cool.
Yeah, that's great. And I remember you telling me a couple of years ago that you spent maybe a full year or at least a full growing season setting up the farm. Can you talk a little bit about what went into that?
Yeah, well, first of all, it started with, there wasn't any blueprint of how to do what we did. So it was a lot of it was imagination, just kind of, because just so that people understand, what the order was to make that farm was, okay, JM, we're hiring you because we believe in you and your ideas, but we want you to make the most amazing farm in the world. And here's a bunch of money, and just do it. And I'm like, okay, well, where do we start? And there was the land, so that was constrained with the land that was there. But then we have the opportunity to make something that is really different. And then you still be wanting to build on some of the things that work. So I traveled, visited a lot of farms, spent a lot of time with Joel Salatin and really understanding better what he was doing, and got a little bit of him involved with the animals on that side. But for the market garden, it was about just like revisiting old ideas from the old French books about having hedgerows and bocage, we call them in French, and how to integrate that in the system. And a lot of permaculture principles with building habitats around the market garden, and then looking at washing stations, some of the best ones in the U.S., the small-scale farming, how they're designed, what's in them. That's how we found the bubbler, and that's how I really connected with Michael Kilpatrick, and we got those spinners going for the wash for the greens, developed a lot of stuff, and just like took a lot of time to put all of that on paper on a design. And then we got moving, and building this farm project took a lot of time. Building soil also the first year. And then I had to, find my clients and then hire a team and get all of that going. So I really started a big farm. And in the end, so like I'm feeling better about this now because I'm a bit more rested. But it was just like anybody starting his own farm. It's a lot of work. And I was really, really tired, but I got it going and persevered, and we made it happen. I'm really happy with the results.
Yeah, that's great. Are you all going 4 seasons now?
We're pretty much going 4 seasons, even in our climate. So we're in Quebec. So first frost would be, I think, mid October, and then we start to get good frost in November, December. It's really cold. January, it's like below 0 Fahrenheit. It's really cold. But we have a lot of greenhouses, and we grow heirloom tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplants, and peppers in those greenhouses in the summer. And in the winter, we don't heat them as much, and we grow spinach, and we grow salad mix. We do a salad bar. And, we grow year-round with the fact that we now grow roots, which I didn't do on my home farm. So we do a lot of rutabagas. We do a lot of Napa cabbages. I don't want to say des radis japonais. These are watermelon radishes. Just to stack the sellers so that when we go to the chef, we deal with chefs a lot too. When we go to the chefs in the winter, we have, yes, fresh greens, but also roots that we harvested earlier on in the summer. So yes, to answer your question, year-round with 4 weeks off.
Okay, so you sent me this video of a talk you gave at the Living Soil Symposium, and I think it was in 2017, and I'll post that at no-tillgrowers.com. But in it, you do some trials with planting directly into compost mulch, and I was wondering if you would maybe talk about or describe those a little bit, and a little bit about how they went or how they're going.
Yeah. Well, this is not a new idea, and a lot of people have been doing this for a long time. Famously, in the last year, I would say, there's a farm called Singing Frog Farm near Sebastopol in California. They've been giving a lot of workshops about what they do with regards to no-till, and for them it's about, they have the permanent beds, and then they just lay half an inch to an inch of compost over what was growing there, and then they just plant into that. And that's how they, how they get rid of what's growing is they just mow it, and then they just add compost over it, and then they plant directly into that. And so I had visited that farm like 3-4 years ago, and so I knew about that. I was like, okay, well, that's just, it's compost intensive, and putting compost down takes time, and you need to be organized for this. And so I had this kind of trial and experimented, but it really came together when we were dealing with carrots. And we were doing a lot of flame weeding with carrots and pre-emergence, so starting the seed beds prior to the seeding date, and then letting the weeds grow for 7 to 10 days, and then seeding the carrots, and then leaving another 7 to 10 days for the weeds to really grow before the carrots emerge, and then using the flame weeder. And this works, and it's been good. But we've had such inconsistent temperature in the last few years that sometimes it worked better than others, and I was really looking for a way to make this more solid. So we ended up doing a lot of feeding directly onto compost for the carrots. So the way this strategy works, pretty simple. We have the permanent beds, and then we broad fork them. We will raise them if it's early spring, whatever, to make them higher so they drain better. And then we put, once the broad fork is done, we use the harrow to level and firm it, so the bed is really neat, really clean, really level and firm. And then we drop compost over it. And we're using the back of our rake. We really make sure that the compost is evenly distributed on the top of the bed, covering the whole 30-inch. We work on a 30-inch bed system. And then once it's laid out, we just, feed directly over it, and then we water it. And we keep it watered until it germinates. So that would be like 3 or 4 times a day when it's sunny, because now the soil is dark. So it can dry up a lot faster, and there's a lot of peat moss in the compost that we use at the farm. So we water, and then we have carrots that germinate without any weeds because the compost doesn't have any weeds. And we've been having really great results with that. So every week now, because we see carrots every week, we use this technique. And super long story short, just because the farm is a bit bigger now, what we've done is that we have a tractor that is 48-inch center to center on the wheel track, and we put a wooden box in the back of it that is really high. And so instead of using something like a manure spreader where you would have a tractor and a trailer that needs a lot of hedge space to turn, we've built the compost so that the compost box so that it's high and it's right in the back of the tractor, so it doesn't take a lot of hedgerow space to turn. In a nutshell, that's a lot of what we do. We use a lot of this strategy also for when we're not sure that the beds that we're seeding with the 6-row seeder that does 12 rows on 30-inch, if they're going to be clean, because we didn't have a lot of time to prepare them. And we don't want any weeds when we're using the 6-row seeder because it's really hard to cultivate. So let's say we're doing arugula intensively, we'll use that strategy. Or if we're doing mesclun, not microgreens, but little greens, Asian greens, we'll use that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because that system is sort of what we found. We started doing that sort of singing frogs, deep compost mulch system. And carrots was one thing that I think stands out above all the others because it comes up. The germination is really nice and uniform, but just the reduction in weed pressure. Are there other crops beyond that and the mesclun mix and that sort of stuff that you're doing that with? Are you is that going to be something that you integrate more into the farm, or is that kind of just going to stick with certain crops?
I think it's going to stick with certain crops because, for us, Jesse, the thing is that the talk you mentioned is called Working with Living Soils, and it's on YouTube. For me, it's not just no-till. No-till is a good stepping stone, but it needs to go beyond that. It needs to go with what I call working with living soils, which is really making sure that your soils are alive as much as possible. And, there's a whole understanding of the soil food web and why this is important and how when we till, we destroy that. I'm sure your listeners know about that. But for me, all of that is a direction. It's not a dogma and it's not a religion. And it really needs to be in line with keeping things practical, economical, And in the end, just better strategy. And so for different crops, I have different strategies. And so I call it my toolbox. And growing directly onto compost is one great strategy for certain crops. But for others, let's say I'm doing salanovas, mini heads of lettuce that I'll cut 3 or 4 times, I'd prefer to just put landscape fabric and have that act as a mulch that keeps the moisture down and helps the fungi community because the soil is not overworked. So that would be one strategy. In other times, I'll just want to perhaps raise my bed with the soil from the aisle using my rotary plow from my BCS, and so I'm not tilling the surface of my soil. I'm just kind of putting more soil over it, and then I'm working that part of the soil. So that's like cheating the no-till. So I have all these different strategies, and depending on the crop, I'll use one or the other.
And what are some other ways that you're sort of encouraging the living soils idea? You mentioned the soil food web. Are you using a lot of Elaine Ingham's kind of practices, or how are you doing compost teas and that sort of thing?
We are. We've been experimenting with compost tea the last 2 seasons. Really for us, it's about figuring out how to make that operation lean, how to not lose too much time doing that. For compost teas per se, making good compost tea is definitely possible. You need to have a compost tea bubbler and get the right equipment. Once you have that and you have a good starter compost to work with, then it's time. And the compost needs to be applied, after it's been brewed. And so one person, let's say, would be making the compost, brewing it, and then once it's brewed, it has to be applied, and then everything needs to be cleaned. So what I've found is that all of these things take time. And when I'm busy in the summer, sometimes I'm taking the whole day to do these things, or taking 4 hours to do these things, they get kind of in check with, I don't know, like picking carrots, where I know I'm making money. So for me, it would be better to have a living soil approach where the way that I do things is incorporated in what I would do anyway. I'm not adding an extra step. And so for me, compost tea is one thing, but there's many others. Like for me, I see this as a pyramid, Maslow pyramids of needs, where for me, the bottom line that we should always be talking about is stop inverting layers, and really focusing on how to optimize soil structure and not have the soils being compacted. So permabeds, broad forks, and really that's like the bottom. And then, putting black tarps to help get to soils that can be worked without tilling them. That's like occultation and creating clean slates to work from, but not by tilling, not by destroying the soil structure, just by the absence of light. To me, that makes a lot of sense. And then enhancing the biology in the soil because it's black and it's dark and it's mulching effectively as the whole garden space. And then going from there, we're also adding a lot of mycorrhizal fungi into the system. We don't talk a lot about that, but when you're in the living soil approach, and you look at actually Elaine Ingham's work, when she talks about the soil food web, you understand that, the organic matter gets broken down by the bacterial life, but also the fungi life. And the fungi life, we should also focus on that. How to optimize fungi life, how to inoculate our soil with fungi life. For me, it's all about using ramial wood chips a lot, or leaves, if anything. But ramial wood chips is the way we do it, and we put that in our pathways, and we leave it there to colonize the fungus for 4, 5, 6 months, and then once this is pretty much decomposed, it goes back into the bed when we raise our bed another time. So that's another layer. And then using good compost, putting a lot of organic matter, a lot of good compost, there's a lot of microbial life in compost, a lot of microorganisms. putting good compost is, in my mind, just as good, perhaps even better than composting, because you have, yes, the microorganisms, but you also have the organic matter that's important. And then when you work your way up that Maslow pyramid, then at the end, for me, there you get microorganism solutions like compost tea or Korean, formulas. So it's the tipping edge, but all the rest needs to be kind of dealt with. Otherwise, you're not really building something that's really going to work, in my mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Where are you getting those ramial chips? Are you doing those chips yourself?
For some years we did. Now we get them from some contractors that are being paid to clear the power lines in the spring. And so the power lines need to be cleared from the branches. And it's really when you want to get the ramial wood chip is in the spring. So it's the top branches of hardwood trees. And in the spring, the tree is placing all of its energy at the top of the branches when things are going to start to bloom and blossom and have the leaves come out. And so these branches are filled with enzymes and sugars, full of energy. You take those, you chip them into big pieces, and you really want to have the twigs, not whole branches. It's twigs. And then you lay that on the pathway, and then it's just amazing food for the fungi community because it's lignin matter, but it's filled with enzymes and sugars, and it decomposes much faster, and that's where you give a good boost. And then those twigs will take 2-3 years to decompose, and then when they're brought back into the beds, then that organic matter breaks down over many years.
Hey, y'all, just going to jump in here real quick and apologize for the audio for the next few minutes. I caught JM on a beach at a conference, and to his credit, he offered to put his jacket over his head while we spoke, but I told him, it'll be fine, because I'm an idiot. Anyway, my bad. Enjoy the party for the next couple minutes. Back to JM. And then that compost that you're getting, how did you source compost that you felt good about in terms of putting it in your soil? Are you going to the composters and checking it out and then ordering it in bulk? What does that process look like?
That's a great question too. And for us, compost, for me, in my mind, compost is like the prime ingredient in all of it. It's really the most important thing, I would say. And I've been really working on, it's been really important for me to make sure that I get the best compost I can get my hands on, and making it myself has not been my priority because I didn't have animals on the farm, don't have a turner, and don't have the right tools. And so I've been buying compost from these people that are really passionate about it, and they know how to make good compost, and they're good at it. So I'm inoculating the soil with really good compost. And I think that's, I'm a good gardener. I know how to grow really awesome vegetables. I know how to manipulate vegetables, handle seeders, do all of that. Nothing says that I'm a good compost maker. And I buy it, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that's great. I'm a firm believer in paying professionals to do the things that you're not professional at.
Exactly. That's super well said, Jesse. And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for everyone, but for me it does.
Yeah, absolutely. And that one, compost in particular, is just such an important part of your farm. Are you how much compost are you putting on per acre right now?
About 40 tons.
Can you talk a little bit? I want to hear some of the things that you've learned about setting up an efficient wash pack station. I think that's something that you obviously, with the amount of produce that you're moving, have to think a lot about. So what are some of the key components of your wash pack station?
Okay, that's a great question also. I would think that one of the key factors is the workflow. And so really thinking about when produce get in, where do they go next? How many times are they handled? And is it streamlined? understanding like where the vegetable comes in, where's it going, how is it manipulated, or are you going back and forth, or are you moving in a narrow and straight direction? So the flow of things, really paid a lot of attention to that. And also the fact that you don't want to cross-contaminate by bringing soil that has been washed, veggies that have been washed, back to where veggies with a lot of soils are stored. So on the new farm, what I've done is we have a linear pattern where you have a garage door at one end, and then the dirty vegetables are coming from that end. And at the other end, you have a cold room, which has two garage doors, and then one to get into the cold room from the washing station, and then one to get out from the cold room to the delivery truck. And so it's really in a linear flow. And because there's liabilities issues, because it's the farm of a billionaire and all of that, it's just different from my home farm. I needed to take these things more into consideration. So that's one. And then pressure in the washing guns, making sure that there's a lot of pressure so that we can really wash down things really neat. Best trick there is that, you need to go from a line that delivers the water through the washing station. Let's say it's an inch and a half line or an inch line. And then when you're ready to get your washing gun, you go to a 3/4 line or a half-inch line. And then that generates a lot of pressure. We found new guns that we had seen in Italy that, handles pressure better. These guns are now available at Johnny's Selected Foods. They're like the blue guns. I don't remember their name now. So that's another part. Look at the drainage also from all of our tubs and our bubbler, that they drain really fast so that we're not losing time just waiting for the drains to empty. Lighting, make sure that there's enough lighting. Making sure that all the walls can be washed. So we're using vinyl. Is that how you say it? Those that vinyl white kind of material so that you can hose down everything, wash down. There's a cement floor. I think that's another key principle. Cement floors so that you can wield everything. I would say that's the number one thing. Wheeling everything on cement floors and having drains, that would be my number one investment on any farm if that wasn't there.
Hey, you all, just going to jump in here real quick, give a shout out to our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Paper Pot Co., your source for the buy it once, guaranteed for life broad fork. At Paper Pot Co., you can buy a broad fork knowing that it will never, ever break. This isn't a hollow marketing guarantee, it is a real guarantee. If your broad fork ever breaks, during normal usage, Paper Pot Co. will replace it for free. Their broad forks are the beefiest, baddest broad forks on the market, made out of 100% cold steel in the USA by someone who knows how to weld really, really well. They are most likely going to outlast you. Give it a try, beat the fire out of it, and know it will take that beating. If you happen to break it, Paper Pot Co. will send you a new one. Buy the best, longest-lasting broad fork on the market at paperpot.co. Use code TOUGHGUY, lowercase, all one word, at checkout to save some money. Buy it once, buy it for life. Buy it at paperpot.co. Today's show is also brought to you by Growing for Market magazine. For 28 years, Growing for Market has been the source for direct food and flower growers. All GFM content is custom written for the magazine by farmers like myself and others who get their hands dirty and know what they're doing. They do not recycle content that you've seen elsewhere. It is a consistently good magazine. If you do farmers market, CSA, farm stand, pick your own florist sales, or wholesaling, your business is different from any other kind of farming. Whether you're a commercial grower or just want to grow like one, subscribe to GFM for the nitty-gritty of growing, marketing, and the business of small farming 10 times a year. Available as a paper magazine, digital download, or both. Subscribe to GFM for the latest on market farming. There's information on growing vegetables and flowers in every magazine. And I will add, lots of good no-till articles. Use the coupon code NOTILL to get 20% off any subscription through growingformarket.com or call 800-307-8949. Subscribers always get 20% off the carefully curated selection of market farming books GFM carries, including podcast guest and GFM editor Andrew Mefford's brand new book, The Organic No-Till Farming Revolution, where Mefford interviews 17 different growers using no-till and gives an overview of the techniques, providing a roadmap for anyone interested in starting a no-till farm or converting an existing one to no or less tillage. That's growingformarket.com. Offer code NOTILL, lowercase, no hyphen. All right, back to JM. And then are you doing in terms of like carrots and you know, dirtier things like that? Are you washing those outside and then bringing them in, or are you washing all of that inside of your wash station?
Yeah, we're washing everything inside simply because um, it's really easier to get things rolling from the inside, and it gets cold in the spring and in the fall. So we're working from the inside. We have windows and we have garage door that can be open if anything. But yeah, we wash everything inside, and then everything is wheeled from where we wash to where things are stored. And then when we manipulate doing CSA share or making orders for restaurants, we go back to the cold room, and then everything's on wheels, and it's really efficient. That's the key word: efficiency of flow, and that gets done when you do design. So it's all about design.
That's great. I want to get back out into the fields here for a second and talk a little bit about one of our Patreon members, Chris Polk, wanted me to ask you about how you feel about those hedgerows and if you've seen any benefits yet, or how you've enjoyed having them there, or what you would do different.
I think if people Google FQT farm, they'll see those hedgerows. They're really awesome. They're really beautiful. They add so much biodiversity to the farm, and also the fact that we've added bird houses to them. They were expensive to design. There was a lot of research that went into them, and they were expensive to build because the owner of that farm wanted to get the result really fast. So we bought big plants, and so it was, I would say, a rather expensive project, which, most small-scale farmers that are relying on their farm income to create, revenues to reinvest on the farm, I'm not sure that would be the top priority. But I tell you, once these are there and they're going and they're flowering from, early to late because of the plant selection, it's just wonderful. And the whole purpose of that when we designed them was we had, let's say, 10 insects that were problematic on our farm. And working with the permaculture design crew, we looked at, from these insects, which one could be either predators of those or beneficials that would help in any way. So we had a list of all these predators or beneficials, and then we looked at what's the habitat of these insects, which shrub or flower would help attract them. And so from there, we had a list of all these different species, and then we built guilds around it. So there was some thinking around those, but once we put them in, it's just been so beautiful. And so Jesse, we don't farm with a tractor, so when we're in the field, we see all these birds and all these insects, and it's just so beautiful, so incredible. And they're also windbreak. So, they're every 40 feet, and they're 5 feet high. So it's a bit overkill, perhaps. I'm not sure totally yet. The experiment is still going on. We have technicians from the university here in Montreal that are on a 5-year program to sample every 2 weeks the insects that they're finding in the hedgerows and on the plants around the hedgerows. So it's a long experiment, but again, long-winded answer short. I think they're awesome. I think the future is that, but it's how you can get somebody to perhaps help pay on your own farm.
That's interesting. Have you seen any preliminary results from that in terms of what insects they're finding? Are they finding a lot of beneficials? And also, have you seen any results in terms of those beneficials helping out with your pest populations?
It's too early to really say anything about that, but we haven't had an outbreak on the farm, so things are looking good on that end. And I would say that what we haven't done is go without nets. So that would be, if I could, farm the way I do and not use the insect nets that I usually put just to make sure. Like, I want to make sure that I'll get my crop, so it's like a security thing. then that would be proving that this really does a difference. But we're not there yet, because if I lose a crop, if I lose a block, then that's a lot of money, and I'm just kind of on the, like, I'm not sure I want to prove a point that much. I know this helps. To what extent, not sure yet, but I'm on the careful side, and I'm definitely not prepared to give any advice to anyone about all that. I think it's really cool, but I think there needs to be more research done about it.
And then with those hedgerows, are you harvesting anything out of them? Are they providing flowers or food or anything like that?
They could be, but we're so busy picking the vegetables and doing all the rest, we don't really have time to just go in the hedgerows. And that was one kind of thing with, working with the permaculture dudes for almost 3 years. They were really always wanting to put edibles everywhere. And I'm like, dude, man, I don't have time to just walk the farm from all over the farm to pick a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Like, it needs to be streamlined. If I'm going to be growing asparagus, let's just put them all in a field block and then get that done. So then I'm harvesting, I'll be efficient. I don't want to have asparagus growing here and there. Like, I'm not a chef where I can just, it's going to be fun for me to come and hang out and pick here and there. And they never got that. They were always trying to put berries here and there. And in the end, like, man, if I send somebody or if I take the time to go pick berries on 7 different blocks, it's not as efficient as just going to one patch where they're all there. So that's really where I see a lot of the permaculture ideas. There's a little bit of a disconnect with commercial production. So I'm changing the subject here, but I really see that permaculture is more helpful when we're building habitats for toads or for snakes or for whatever, whichever will help in the market garden for birds. So yeah, does that make sense, Jesse?
Yeah, absolutely. You built ponds and stuff there too, right?
Built ponds and habitats for snakes and for toads and for frogs. Toads, they eat the mice and the baby voles, and you just need to create the habitat for them to be there. Make sure that these habitats, they connect. And the birds, the same. Birds, when they're nesting, they eat a lot of insects, like a lot. And so if you have a lot of bird houses and they're populated, it's going to make a difference. It's just like using these ecological services to surround the market garden with this biodiversity. And the end game would be to have an ecosystemic approach to plant protection, where there's so much happening, there's so much biodiversity, so many insects of all kinds, and when the cucumber beetle wants to come in and set, there's no room. The space is occupied by other insects. That's the theory, but I don't want to say we're there. Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll be looking forward to hearing how that develops over the next couple of years. Is there anything in 2019 that you're super excited about in terms of what's going on at the farm?
Well, I'm starting with a fresh crew. So all the people that I've been training the last 3 years, they're all moving on. So I'm starting fresh, and so I'll need to get involved more. And you learn by doing. So I'm going to be learning all again over. But besides that, I would say, I don't know. We're doing pretty cool projects with strawberries in gutters. So we have strawberries that are in flower planters, and we leave them there for the full summer. So they're like in little boxes. And then we mow them and we bring them inside to the cold room for the winter after a good frost. And then we'll put them back in the greenhouses, unheated, in February. And then we're going to get really early strawberries. So experimenting on that. Few new restaurants that I'm going to start to work with and studying about. And then the farmers market is really on. There's a TV show. That's something to talk about.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
Yeah, it's the last 2 years they've been filming us and what we do. Filming the crew, filming me, filming the farm. and it's a really, there's no drama, and there's nothing fake about it. It's really us explaining what we do and why. But it's been gaining so much popularity here in Quebec. It's kind of like, wow. It's primetime TV. People watch the show. People know the crew. They recognize the crew in the street. And that's going to happen again this year. And then I'm going to be bringing, hopefully, some of my older crew to Japan to visit biointensive farms there. So I'm doing a little bit of R&D this year, and we're going to be filming that. This series called Les Fermiers in French. I'm not sure how it's going to be called in English, but it's going to be subtitled, and it's going to be available on YouTube in the next months here. If people want to know more about it, they can just go on my YouTube channel, and it'll be posted there.
That's so interesting. I didn't realize that it was already, I thought it was in production. It wasn't actually already out. So this is, if somebody speaks French, they can go, in theory, watch this now, yeah?
Yeah, the first season came out last spring, and then the second season is coming out this spring, and then we're about to film the third season.
Okay, last interruption, but someone please tell me, am I the only one who did not realize that there is a straight-up reality television show about J.M. Fortier? Anyone else's mind blown by this? I did check it out. It is in French and Canadian French at that, so your high school French may not be sufficient help, but it is really cool looking. I mean, how did I not know this? If you want to check it out, it is Les Fermiers, that's LES space FERMIERS. Hopefully it will be subtitled soon. I did not find that one, but he says soon, so hopefully soon. All right, back to JM.
And the second season was filming some of my crew that, after 2 years working with me, went and started their own farm. And so we're filming them with, me not there, and them kind of going through some struggling and some of the, you know how it is, how to start a farm. It's not always roses. And but just filming the spirit of it all, and how what we're doing is awesome, because it's fucking awesome, and it's just showing it to the mass media, and then people saying, yeah, fuck yeah, that's what we want. We want to have food grown with care by people who care, and that's what we're seeing. And it's been a major actor in Quebec, that TV show. Really incredible.
That's super cool. Are you still kind of working towards doing a sort of incubator program with the people that work there? I remember you were telling me that you were kind of thinking of expanding to a bigger incubator program. Is that kind of what you're still eyeing?
No, I think this is it for me. I'm done with new projects. Next project, Jesse, I take a van and I put surfboard and bikes, and I go and visit you and hang out. Like, this project was big enough, and then I'm also teaching an online masterclass, which is taking a lot of my time, and really positive. And my home farm is also really happening, really fun. I want to spend time there. And so my calendar is pretty set here.
Nice. Before I let you go, do you want to give us a little rundown of those of the online courses that you have that you offer?
Yeah, I think the online course in the last, I think that's the part that brought me the most satisfaction, because if people know about my work and what I do and why I do what I do, I like creating content, and I'm good at sharing it and explaining it. But for me, it's not about me. It's about you. It's about you, being able to make it and getting better at it. That's where I get my satisfaction. And so the Market Gardner was written for that, to give other people tools to start their project. But when we started to film, it just took on a whole new level of detail. I can really show people how to manipulate carrots to harvest them optimally, which in a book, I can't write that. It's too complicated. And so all the vegetables that I grow, it's documented every step of the way how to do it. And then you see it, and then it's also written in a kind of a recipe formula. And so you can bring these are called standard operating procedures, and then you can bring those to your shed, and then you can visit those while you're in the field. But at night, you can go and see how I do carrots from start to finish. It's all edited so that when you start, we'll be doing the bed prep. Then we'll be, seeding the carrots, talking the details about the seeder, how to calibrate it, all these details, and then how we're not cultivating because we're using, compost and seeding onto it, or when we're cultivating, the biodisc that we use, and then how we harvest, how we protect against rust fly, how we wash and store and sell it. So it's all in one glance. So I think that my idea with that was to provide just more technical information, and it's a big success so far, Jesse. We launched that a year ago, and there's more than 1,000 people in it right now, and it's from 55 different countries. And it's so cool that it went that way because, I invested a lot in that project because I want it to be high quality and fun and educational and well done. But now, we have people working full-time on this project. We've created networks of growers from all over, and then they get together on the internet to just chat. There's different forums, and we've managed to get discounts to tools on a lot of the tools that I use and recommend. And of everyone that has taken the class so far, we're getting a lot of people sending in the info that it has made a big difference in their first year using the class, but we've had about 4 people saying that they don't like it, which for me is a good sign. People have paid for it, they've committed to it, and they're happy with it. And it's a pricey tag. It's $2,000 US. And when I was thinking about how to price the class, I always had this perspective that, well, what's the value? What's the value? And the value is more than $2,000. That's what we're hearing for most of the people taking the class. And it's a lifetime access. Like, I don't want to be the sales guy here. I should just send you the link, Jesse, and you should be reviewing the masterclass and telling the others what you think about it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to do that.
Okay, I'll do that. You're on. Because I've known you for many years and I like you, you're on.
Awesome. Well, J.M. Fortier, it is always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Same here, and I'm going to take the time to tell all of your listeners that, what we do, guys, it's not always easy. There's ups and downs, but, man, it's important. And, if we're going to be changing how food is grown in the world, it starts with us. And so we're doing important work, and I'm wishing you all the best in this next season. To everyone. Come on. All right, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to grab a copy of J.M.'s book, The Market Gardner, from New Society Publishers, if you do not own it yet. You should. It's wonderful. Also follow J.M. at Instagram and all the things. All of those links will be in the show notes. Also, J.M., true to his word, as always, has given us access to the masterclass, so we will review that shortly at no-tillgrowers.com. Make sure you are subscribed to this podcast, leave a review on iTunes, that helps us out. Sign up to be a patron at patreon.com/farmerjesse, patreon.com/farmerjesse. You can also Venmo us a donation. Venmo is like an app on your phone, and it's really useful. Anyway, Venmo us a donation to at no-tillgrowers. That's ampersand no-tillgrowers, all one word. Big thank you to our sponsors, Growing for Market Magazine, Paper Pot Co., and Banner Greenhouses. We really appreciate your support. Please show them love for supporting your favorite podcast about no-till market gardening. Other than that, you all, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye. That's going to end our recording. And you can go to the beach. Yeah, and you can go hit those waves, dude. They're too big. Oh, well, yeah, don't hit them then.